Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studio and hosting Kari Frazier. I rarely say this, but I'm saying it now because when people think about this content creation in the city of Detroit, getting stories, archiving of all different types of people, it's a lot of people that's been doing this that laid the groundwork. And even though he looked like he's 15, that ain't really the story behind it. Mr. Chris Massey, how are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
Man, everything's good, man. Everything's good, man. You are one of the people with the Chris Massey Show that has archived so many different stories throughout Detroit. Last year, we caught up on the phone conversation for a while, talking about your George Clinton interview, talking about connecting to DJ Quick and so many other things. And this is just things that stand out in my mind. And also Sister in Arms Piper Carter.
Yes, sir.
But you've been doing this for a long time. And when I say that, I tip my hat to you because content creation is a lot more difficult than people think.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
it's funny that you said, or you was joking about me appearing to be 15.
Yeah.
But we in the 15th year of the podcast career. So as of December 1st, 2008 was the very first Chris Massey Show. It was on soundsofsoulradio.com. Shout out to Stacey J. Yeah, man.
That's what's up. And I've been doing it 10.
Oh, congratulations.
So and thank you. Yeah, getting here. That's where
that's a milestone
it's not
year
a lot
for you.
of it's not a lot of people that stay around really after
2.
What do they say? They say actually the average podcast lasts 7 episodes.
Man.
And I can tell you why. And when that means, like, if you all paid attention in any of your trigonometry or algebra 2 classes, it's like basically, so if 7 lasts, that means that the average is so many that are 1 or 2 episodes, and then it'll be a couple more that may be like balance out, that'll be 15 or 12, and so many variables go into it. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but we're going to go classic Detroit is Different. You and your story, man. What grounded your people in the city? What are you, first, second, third? How many generations deep are you Detroit?
Let me see. Well, with my parents, my father's from Cincinnati and my mother Belleville. Between them, I'm the first. I was
You're
born
the
on
first Detroiter.
I was born on the east side of Detroit.
Okay.
When you go back, my grandparents. It's funny. I'm glad you asked this. I had to do this project my freshman year of college at Dillard University in New Orleans. So I went through my family tree before it was even, it was a dope assignment. Both sides of the family is from Georgia, Macon and Columbus. And so, migrated up here, and I'm one of the Detroiters, Eastside,
So let's talk about a little bit something else that we have in common now that I know. My dad's from Cincinnati. Avondale neighborhood for sure.
Dope.
You know what I'm saying?
I gotta ask my father his neighborhood.
So it probably Avondale. Reverend Shuttlesworth and a lot of, I call it country.
For sure.
But them people were like, we ain't country, but I love it. I love
call us
Cincinnati.
country.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't even know that. I haven't ran into a Detroit country people. We got our own style. Detroit is different, but
yes,
it's
sir.
that feel. And then Belleville, for people that know, kind of like between Detroit and Ann Arbor. So what led them to the D?
I'm guessing opportunity. That's something I got to dive more into. My mother worked in the court system for years until she retired. That's why I joke with people a lot. I grew up on the good side of the court system, because I know a lot of law. I'm actually qualified in a lot of areas without certifications, you know what I'm saying? Because I love to read and study. I'm a sponge. So she taught me all types of things. And then my father, he put his work in with Ford, retired after his 35 years. And one of my great inspirations, both of my parents, they placed me in a dope, unique situation to succeed. So I'm doing my best to give them a great return on their investment.
Well, I definitely know you. Every time I've interacted with you, it's always plans in motion. And as y'all can hear, even in the voice and the communication skills, Chris should be behind the microphone, most definitely, and so much more. With this being in flow, you at that younger age, you said court system. What was your mom doing in courts?
She had a variety of, well, not a variety. She was court reporters. From what most notably court reporting.
And court reporting is, if people watching
like
any of these trials, that is like, people type shorthand and you get everything. So when I say like everything, so it's not like today where you can put a recorder up and then clean it up later. It's like, no,
you're special equipment. You speaking, I think it's called a steno mask or something like that. And it's a unique way of transcribing.
And court reporters also, if people are watching any of these trials, whether that be the Michael Jackson trial that just went through or what I've been paying attention through the lead attorney, this Young Thug trial, the court reporters have very close relationships with everyone in the court system. That means attorneys, judges, bailiffs, and they're relied upon because this is the source that's going to on record of everything that's happened. And, sometimes as we're finding with certain trials, they'll connect to other trials and they'll pull reports from other things. Yeah, it's heavy. And you said, how long did she do that?
For years, man.
Wow.
Decades.
Yeah. Okay, so that definitely puts you in the mix of connecting to many of the attorneys and judges in and around the city of Detroit.
I'm glad, great segue. I'm glad you said that because I had a great conversation with somebody recently about that. I've been networking. My individual life has unfolded as a result of networking before I even knew what that term was. Starting with how I went to school, K through 12. I got into Bates Academy because my parents are close friends with the former principals. Then, networking. And then, like you said, the network through the court system as a result of me being my mother's son, So I'm just going to cross paths with people. So I just know people. And then fast forward to how we got here, if it wasn't for my show, I don't think we probably would have crossed paths.
Nah.
And that's not a bad thing, but I'm saying I'm so thankful for this platform and gift that I've been blessed with because it's taken me to places that I never could have imagined and cross paths with individuals like yourself that I'm fortunate for, and I probably wouldn't have been blessed with those opportunities.
Me too. And see, this is the skill set he has. It's like the interviewer switches the one interviewed. We go in different dynamics. So you going into places in that Detroit is different journey. So first, let's start Eastside. You say Eastside. What neighborhood?
First home I lived in was on Longview and Chalmers. Then we moved over to Collingham and Hayes.
Okay.
And then we moved when I was 13 to Clinton Township.
Okay.
So I've always lived east side of Detroit or east suburb, but went to school K through 12 on the west. So that's why I'm all over.
So let's talk a little bit about that Chalmers Longview neighborhood. I was kind of over that way the other day. What do you remember? What stood out? What was the culture like over there?
I'm glad you asked that because I love to tell these stories. I have a vivid memory since I was 3. And so one of my fondest memories was Christmas 1989. I just found out when I became an adult that was Chambers Brothers territory. For those who don't know, that's what New Jack City was based off of. And as a kid, kids were carefree and joyous, so it was all pleasant memories for me. But then in hindsight, as I grew up and started researching the city and how I grew up, that was a very interesting to say the least. You understand what the 80s was like, as crack arrived in 84, and I was born in 86. So I often think about what it was like for my parents as adults, because now I'm in that age where my peers have children and their parents are married. So I'm gonna go back and ask them, like, what was it like? Because they still got to go to work and all of this. You know what I'm saying? They coming back home, taking care of a child, being great providers, and they did very well because I have mostly pleasant experiences. The one time, my bad, what was you about to say?
I was going to say, I think that being in this home we're at, my grandmother's house, I live next door. I grew up, for the most part, over here on Clements off 12th. Nice. And it definitely was wild things happening. I mean, this is, 12th Street, NFL. Like, it is a lot of, as I say, urban tribalism that goes on. But inside of that, even through the ways that crack cocaine impacted Detroit, there was still families. There was still functionality. It's like I always even tell as people moved here too. It's the streets is hiring and they're there, but it's if you choose that path. But then it's also a lot of things if you don't choose that path. Actually, I believe the more enterprising people that are in the black collar economy are supportive of people not necessarily in that, because that helps them navigate, not necessarily in positions where your mother and people in your mother's positions end up typing things. So some of the more affluent and I guess say enterprising people in the black collar economy I know were the people that kept their grass cut. Homes that you just definitely would not recognize. I think that the crack era, which I'm expanding, is like crack comes up so much often, and I think that it also is overshadowed as if heroin didn't exist in these communities in the 70s, and the way methadone clinics existed and things like that. Like, the black community has always historically been under-resourced from municipal, state, and federal governments, just due to the likening of how black people get here. So I sometimes think, when speaking of the way that crack cocaine impacted communities, it can paint a picture as if black folks were being intentionally and maliciously destructive to one another, and never anything like this. There were certain things during that time that were unique. And one of the key things that was most unique is it puts a lot of younger people into street enterprising because of the sentencing and things shifting towards sentencing. So younger people that don't have the same experience in anything, and this would be anything, weren't as understanding of the gravitas of what things could be. But when we think of the street enterprising people of the 60s, 50s, and 40s, and 30s, and 20s that were black, that funded a lot of like the black newspapers throughout the nation, funded a lot of the a lot of the churches, a lot of the hospitals. When we think of what happened in, as they call it, as we think of what happened in Oklahoma City, and everything that happened to the black folks there, a lot of that was intertwined into a lot of the street enterprising, because a lot of black businesses were never offered the opportunities of white businesses, which still exist today. So I just like to frame that, and I know that's a longer soliloquy classic. Detroit is different. Kari talking so much, but I just want to frame it the right way, because I grew up in this neighborhood, and there were tragedies that did exist, because as younger people without the same understanding and experience get involved in something that is larger than them, it would be like if 20-year-olds were to take over General Motors in the 1980s as well. I'm pretty sure we would see some interesting things.
Interesting, to say the least. And on the tail end of what you just said, it reminds me of the importance of opportunity and resources.
Yeah.
Because, for example, what we're doing now, I have these conversations often. I don't know what it was like for you growing up, but imagine if we had someone say, "Oh, you could have your own podcast." Like, we're in an industry that didn't exist. Like, when I started, it wasn't podcasting.
And I do definitely want to get there, and I definitely have to go through other you tying in so many Detroit arcs that we gonna get there.
Oh yeah.
But we got to talk about Bates Academy, because Bates Academy is one of those schools that is I guess people label a good school, but it's one of those schools and a destination school for many parents that are looking for elementary and junior high school experiences for their children, where it became a destination of gifted children. Almost what Cass Tech is in high school, Bates could be argued to be what elementary and middle school was. What was Bates like for you?
It was all of that. It used to be known as Bates Academy, the school for the gifted and talented. I went through K through 12, and it was dope.
You went there K through 12?
Yeah, Bates.
Okay.
So Bates,
I didn't know it went to 12.
I mean, excuse me.
K through 8. Yeah, that's what I was
thinking about Renaissance too, because of what I'm about to tie in. But thank you for that, because I've been blessed to go to 2 schools that are melting pots. You know what I'm saying? So I have lifelong friendships. I'm 38 now. I have friends for 30 plus years that I keep in contact with on the regular.
So let's talk about a little bit of those teachers and what were you getting from Bates itself?
Man, I have off top 2. Rest in peace to one of them, Mrs. Terry Osmond.
What did she teach?
She was my first grade teacher.
Miss Osmond. Shout out.
Shout out to her. One of the dopest people ever. I'm actually cool with her son still, like, because we're like a family. He went to Bates as well. Shout out Chad. And then another one is Miss Gibson. If she hasn't retired, she's English teacher, 7th and 8th grade. And she taught me, introduced me to my extensive vocabulary.
So vocabulary was the thing that really drew you into English?
Nah, see, that's a great question because I wasn't always the best student. I was known as the class clown K through 12. And in hindsight, now that I'm adult, see, I love to read. And so I've learned recently that it's not that children don't like to learn or they don't like school or they're bad students. It's what they're learning and how they're learning. Everybody has a different learning pace. And I made it through. I mean, I graduated from Bates with at least a 3.5. That's what helped me get into Renaissance. Within Renaissance, it was like teenagers kicking it, and then I'm just
a whole different.
It's a whole different dynamic.
So during this time, that transition, are you? When do you all make the move to Hayes, which is a little further east, and then the Clinton Township? Where are you living at the time when you're going to Bates?
So Bates up until 7th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're
it's like 97.
97. I'm
still on Collingham and Hayes.
Okay.
I moved to Collingham and Hayes when I was 5.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So what was that community like?
I had a ball over there, man.
And I call that, for people that don't know, and it's like a relic now, but I call that like the Eastland neighborhood. but what was that like?
It's exactly 8 blocks from Eastland. My house was. I used to ride my bike up there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What do you remember first? Let's go to the neighborhood. Then we got to definitely get some Eastland stories because for Westsiders, Northland, Westsiders would act like Eastland is far away. And it was the Eastside's version of Northland. And it also had like some interesting things, and I'll say some of my colorful Eastland stories too in this. But what was the neighborhood like?
It was a dope neighborhood. It was a sense of community. I know, especially on my block, I knew about 80% of the neighbors, like on both sides of the street. A couple homes had children, so we'd play ball, ride bikes. Yeah, it was a nice sense of community. And yeah, we had a great time. We was allowed to be kids. Keep in mind also, this is the early 90s. So like I said, as children, they try to shelter you and protect you as much as possible, but certain things you can't help but to be exposed to. Yeah. But because I grew up in a grounded household, no disrespect to those who weren't, I'm not saying yours wasn't, you understand? It's just that like you said, certain things are about a choice. So I'm also very fortunate and thankful. I think about this a lot, that I was blessed with the opportunity to make choices, because sometimes people can try to put you in a situation where you feel like you don't have a choice. Yeah. But I was always the one that was laid back, the jokester, having fun, kicked it with everybody, come play ball at my house, play video games and stuff. But so yeah, we just kicked it, had fun.
Okay. All right. So Eastland. Now we got to definitely tell some Eastland stories.
Honestly, I was being a kid, so I stayed away from certain things, but I heard about certain things also. But I did love to go up there. I'm glad you mentioned Eastland, because I was thinking about the transition. We went from Hudson's to Marshall Fields to Macy. You know what I'm saying? And that's where we used to go to shop and have fun.
Yep. It was Eastland, as I say, like the culture. It may be like when people say the West Side is so different than the East Side. That's where it would be at. So like if you walked in like if this is 1998, walking in Northland, it would be like people dressing up to go shopping and buy clothes.
Exactly.
You go to Eastland, it would be like some people was dressed up to buy clothes, but then it'd be like somebody like it just finished cutting the grass, but then they'll buy like $5,000 worth of clothes. It's like, this is just a different feel sometimes, like that I would get there, the movie theater that was in there,
Beacon East.
it was, you know, if you ever wanted to go see a movie and like get the experience where they say black people talking through the movie, black people was talking through the movie.
But that's not only Eastland. That's the Bel Air over there off of 8 Mile.
I was going to get that too.
You know, we grew up. My grandparents.
Okay, so your grandparents stayed over there?
No, off of Norwood and Winchester by Pershing.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So, you know, Bel Air is right over there. We all East 8 Mile from that area. Like bouncing all around. The majority of my mother's family is Eastside. So we over on White Hill and Mogul. We over on Norwood and Winchester.
Okay, and I think about the Michigan Fun Center when I think about there, a place that's no longer. It was an arcade,
a strip club now.
Yeah, well, it was an arcade when I was a kid.
It was a go kart spot. It was a go kart arcade spot.
Yep.
Right there, across from the Chrysler plant, I think.
Yep, right across from the Chrysler plant, and
it's on Ryan at 8 Mile.
Definitely, yep. So I think that
between Ryan and Mount.
Mm-hmm. So all of these like different experiences of like kid stuff. You know, and yeah, Bel Air is another one of those places. You know, saw Rush Hour 1 at Bel Air, and it was
that's the spot that
colorful.
Now those stories, like, see, I was a kid, but I was very observant. That's why I like artists like Kendrick, who and Common and 3000 people who was in it but not in it. Like you're in it, but you were observing. you a sponge, and so it's just like. Bel Air, I remember specifically. Remember when Boys in the Hood came up?
Yeah, I remember when Boys in the Hood came out. That probably is definitely a theater that, like, you're going to immediately, like...
so you already know I wasn't there because I was 5.
Yep.
But I know people who went to go see it. And so, yeah, it was an interesting experience, to say the least.
Yeah, so...
But it was always fun for me because, you know, people took me during the day and... around with children.
So this is also, I like that you bring that up because sometimes I think, especially through the hip hop generation, we can paint so many pictures that I think glorify one dynamic, but running concurrent, like this is, when I saw Boys in the Hood, we also saw the 5 Heartbeats. So this is running concurrent. So like depending upon the time of the day and when you go, you're going to get that energy and then you can get a whole nother energy.
It's just a dope experience as people are interactive.
Yeah, so and I don't think it's as, you know, as stark as sometimes people can portray it. Like, you know, I look at some of the interviews with some of the MCs here and they be like, oh man, the D, it was like Beirut and you're going to get shot every day. And it's like, it just depends on the lens and where you are, because those same houses have, I mean, when we think of the East Side, like the anchors in churches, we think of the anchors in community groups, we think of the anchors in organizing. You know, shout out Edith Ford and all the stuff she's doing. You know, like it runs concurrent. And street life does exist, as we say, that black collar economy is there, but it still coincides with community in itself. And I'm not necessarily saying this is how it's supposed to be and where it's supposed to be, but it's not as if, you know, what Biggie say, you know, you either slinging Clark Rock or you got a wicked jump shot. No, there's a lot of people that did get jobs at the plant. It's a lot of people that did work in offices. It's a whole lot of people that did work within the church. It's a whole lot of people that, you know, I mean.
It's a lot of self-employed entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you brought that up because one of the main reasons that I claim the East Side is because of the positive aspect of what I've seen and the representation that I am, because in addition to your point, that's not just the East Side of Detroit, that's any city. I let people know all the time that it's never just one way. And Detroit itself as a whole is definitely not the negative stereotypes. I'm not saying that stuff doesn't exist because it's obvious, but there's a whole nother aspect, it's a whole nother side to it. Like, for example, anybody who hangs out with me, whether you're a native from here or a visitor, I take you to places, they be like, I didn't know. It's people here. They be like, Chris, I didn't know this was here. I'm born and raised here. They be like, I'm born and raised here. I didn't know this was over here. I didn't know, oh, this is so lovely. This is so amazing. So it's just a matter of what you choose to focus on. And that's why I said I can name exactly why we're doing this right now.
Yeah.
Because I began my show not knowing what I was doing, but in hindsight, as I figure out what the brand identities I realized that we're showing you the other side without being preachy, because for everything that you see or you think you know on the mainstream media, that's one side of it. No disrespect, because we need to be informed. But also, you want to know something different, come to Chris Massey. Because I'm showing you what we're doing, I'm not in your face preaching about it. Whenever people be like, "Yo, that guest was dope. I like what they doing. Where they from?"
Yeah, and it's
85 to 90% at least from Detroit.
I love it.
Yep. And 15 plus years.
And with it, I also definitely got to highlight this of it. Now we going into the story of you at Renaissance. So from Bates to Renaissance, a lot of Bates students end up at Renaissance because they're close.
Right.
Like kids, Renaissance is like overrun by kids that go to Flicks and Bates. Like both those schools are close. What was the Renaissance experience like? And this is the old Renaissance.
Yeah, that's what Flicks is now.
Yep. So what was Renaissance like for you during that time?
It's amazing, man. This timing is perfect too because my 20-year anniversary is today.
Wow, that's deep.
It's the weekend.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I loved Renaissance, man. Like I said, like Bates, it was a melting pot, and because I love it because you have children from all over the city of Detroit.
So same thing. Who are some of the teachers that stand out? What are the lessons? You're going to Renaissance also. This is the era of like how we kind of met was through Richard Harrison, but his brother Malik Harrison at the time
He went to Bates and Renaissance with me.
Man, Malik is like a premier athlete, basketball player. And this is in the shadows of the program that was built there from what Mark White developed with Ricky Paulding, hell of an athlete as well. Joe
Crawford.
Joe Crawford. Joe Crawford, like basketball becomes something and Renaissance becomes something and everybody knows it's like the girls of Renaissance is fun and all of that stuff is that.
That's because you got that melting pot of Detroit.
Yes.
It's
so
the best of the best.
What do you remember about the culture? Who were some of the teachers that stood out? What were the lessons? And you all kind of were like the closeout before the new school kind of comes too.
The new one opened in 07.
Yep.
I'm 04.
Yep. But it's close.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
we was on that tail end.
Yeah. So share your Renaissance experience.
It was amazing, man. I have only the greatest memories. One of my teachers I still keep in contact with today. Shout out to Cedric Smalls, English teacher.
Another English teacher.
Yeah, in hindsight, like sometimes you don't realize things until you having a conversation and it clicks all of a sudden.
Yep.
Dope guy, man. I lost a science teacher. Rest in peace, Mr. Johnson. He was very stern and a no nonsense person, but that's what you need. You know what I'm saying? It's like a discipline in a respectful way. He wasn't rude. It's just like a great teacher, a great guider. It's like if I'm not gonna steer you wrong, I'm not gonna let you go the wrong direction on purpose. So a proper balance. I played football briefly. Rest in peace, Coach Hill. Yeah, man, and it was just dope, man. And I keep in contact with a significant percentage of my classmates. Malik went to Bates and Renaissance with me. I talked to him from time. We keep in contact. Shout out to Rip. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I've developed lifelong friendships and fulfilling relationships with people.
And also, when we think of that class, my homegirl, Sharia. Shout out Sharia.
Shout out Sharia Ayers.
You know, that's my homie in arms on so many things.
Yeah, she's dope.
So from there, Dillard. Dillard in New Orleans. What was that experience like? And I'm guessing now with that graduation, that puts you there as Katrina's happening. So I definitely want to get.
So this is my life story at this point where things start to change how we get to here. So I barely graduated from Renaissance. This goes back to the networking.
Yep.
Because I graduated from Renaissance with a 1.2.
Oh man, dang! Talk about barely graduating, brother. You was definitely that. I know your parents was like, "What are you doing, boy?"
So look, this when the networking comes in because my parents know people on the board at Dillard, so I didn't have a say in this. I didn't. So people ask me, "What?" I told you earlier, I was allowed to be a kid, but I never really. I was living in the moment, suspended in the moment as a kid, and so I never really thought about what I want to be growing up. Even though they ask you that, what you want to be when you grow up. I remember one time I said a lawyer.
So I do gotta ask this for all the moms and dads watching that got that son or daughter that's like that's got a 1 point whatever.
I hope they don't.
What were you?
Right.
It happens.
It does.
What was going on at the time that you think wasn't the focus? And I know you said like sometimes
exactly
school connects or
what
was it?
I know exactly what it was. Like I was a class clown from K through 12. I was never like the violent type or getting into chaos and stuff, but I was having fun, and then apparently it was too much fun, and so I wasn't doing my work. And then I was never dumb or incapable of doing the work. I'm just like, I was not interested. And that's what goes to when I mentioned that it's not what it's how you're being taught. And I'm a hands-on person, and I learned about different learning methods when I graduated from high school.
And also, because, I got a 1 point something on my record, too.
Oh, word.
But what, and I know what it was like for me, how did that impact the relationship with your parents at the time?
Man, to be honest, when they hear this, I honestly, I don't think they gave up. But they was just like, we didn't try it, you know? And but it was a lot of stuff going on outside of school, so this is why I work with a lot of comedians also in hindsight, because I've learned to channel dark moments and moments that could sway you in another direction and focus on the lighter side of it. A lot of people don't know I'm my parents' only child, but I had a half brother, and he got killed when I was 17. And so I have, so these are things that you don't think affect you because it's somewhat the norm. I lost a few classmates in the high school year, so this is the other side of it. I just don't choose to focus on that side all the time, you know. So subconsciously, things do affect you.
I agree.
You're not supposed to lose. We're supposed to live long. And the first time you hear about a classmate getting murdered at 15 or 16, then you like, oh, that could be me. You know, it's very scary.
I think I do believe that this goes into like at any point, an interview I recently had, Rocky Harris, just talking about how human beings cope with grief, period, whomever that is. But if you're younger, definitely having that understanding where that is, and then that the counseling around it and how to get grounded within it. Whereas, it was a couple different incidents, and this is just back to like how a person sees and interprets a lot in life in the world, and it can definitely be more impactful. Different path for me, because Lord knows, I mean, going to Northwestern, it's like, it's like, I get half a day of school, but some people really needed some of those times to connect, and I don't know how they connected, and Lord knows, I don't know what my influence would be. It's like, oh yeah, I get to, y'all can go to that. I'm going to drive down the street to Coney Island. So, you know what I'm saying? Taking a step towards food I probably don't need to be eating anyway. But that's where my consciousness was at the time at a younger age. So, Dillard, you're there, you get in, and you're in New Orleans. And this is also during the time as, Cash Money is like...
on fire. Wayne is on fire. This is 04. This is 04.
Yeah.
That's at the peak.
Yeah.
The first Carter, that was 04. So I graduated from Renaissance. My parents was like, you going to Dillard. So I had no choice. And I have no say in that.
And if you've never been, I strongly suggest it's a couple things that I say you should go. And I'm not even a travel person. New Orleans is definitely a city. The culture is so different because of the grounding of New Orleans. Just like Detroit, it's another French-based city in America. But due to the ports, it's just...
The resource, it has the potential, it could be its own entity because of the access to the resources, like you said.
So what was it like getting down there? What do you remember, and what was the feel? And this is pre-Katrina, but...
It's the last year pre-Katrina. This is when my life changed significantly.
So what was just getting there? What was just
getting, like I said, parents know best when they, the way I was raised, even though you're 18, people think you grown, you're not. And no disrespect, and different, and really quick, the way that we grew up also, some people had to grow up fast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were kids. They were adults as kids. I was allowed to be a kid, and so my parents was like, "You going to Dillard?" Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know nothing about New Orleans. We go visit one time. I fell in love with it immediately. Like, this is where I belong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Southern hospitality is real. I got embraced. People looked out for me. I'm my parents' only child, so, and you know, being from here, we could be standoffish. We're very observant, and you know, we you ain't anticipating nothing. You want the best possible outcome, but you always got your head on the swivel.
Yeah.
As it should be, but not to the point where, you know, you could potentially miss an opportunity or, you know, scare someone off or something. Mm-hmm. So I go down there by myself. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know anybody. I don't have family down there. I'm the only person from high school. I'm one of 5 Detroiters in my class. Yeah. The other ones went to Cass. Mm-hmm. And but you know, I know all these people, so that when they found me, we
connected.
Yeah, we got connected. They looked out for me. I got embraced, and Dillard was like a family. Mm-hmm. And it's located right in the city. In proximity, think of how Marygrove is situated.
Yeah.
That's how Dillard is, on Gentilly Boulevard, right in the city of New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Beautiful city. Glad you mentioned Cash Money. Have you ever heard of, or are you familiar with Peaches? Peaches Record Store? Mm-hmm. About 2 or 3 blocks from Dillard. Mm-hmm. One of my big homies. Were you a No Limit fan?
Yeah, I mean, I was a fan. I mean, yeah, we in the same era, man.
So, I mean,
yeah, definitely.
Fortunately, as of my career, my podcasting career, the first celebrity and one of my big homies now is Fiend from No Limit.
Okay.
And I tell him, exactly. Shout out Fiend. What up, though? Mm-hmm. I talked with him recently on the phone, and I was saying I don't have a lot of regrets, but if I could change one thing, I didn't go to Peaches. I walked past it
That's hilarious.
I'm going to the grocery store. I'm going to get food. Mm-hmm. Always walking past Peaches, and I would have went in there because at this time, R.I.P. Soulja Slim, they had them. For those who remember the slow motion video, remember the yellow T-shirts with the Soulja Slim, the slow motion T-shirts?
Yeah,
they was for sale in Peaches. I could have went and got one easily. Had my, you know what I'm saying, my souvenir for pay homage and respect. I didn't go. Dillard was dope. And I averaged a 3.8.
That's cool.
I went from 1.2 to 3.8 because
I know your parents was like, thank God.
Yeah. It was like because I could laugh and joke about it now, but not knowing if you're going to graduate, because I say, if I don't graduate from Renaissance, I ain't going back. I got to figure something out. So when I barely made it, I said, you have a fresh start. So when I got there, I had a balance of studying and taking care of my school business, and I also hung out on the weekends.
Yeah. So that field, New Orleans, is definitely a cool place to hang out. You got the French Quarter, and then it's different parts of New Orleans. And New Orleans is also one of those places you got to have a little street smarts too. So like if you get further away from the French Quarter, you got to be observant. You know what I'm saying?
And I mean, you know where we from, it's second nature to us. You know, so I wasn't really tripping.
But
and I don't, because I know how to carry myself too. It's like I don't attract certain things, and I know how to stay away. Mm-hmm. And some, you know how it is. Some things are inevitable, but I'm fortunate again that I had never had those experiences.
So now Katrina happens. What's that impact like?
So during I had a great freshman year. Mm-hmm. I go home, come back, 2005. This is August 2005, and we're actually approaching the 19-year anniversary of Katrina. Mm-hmm. As a sophomore, you know, you don't have to come back early, you know, because you already acclimated everything. So I came back the Saturday before classes start. Mm-hmm. I'm there from Saturday to Saturday. I go to school one full week. Around Thursday, they talking about it's a storm called Katrina. It might be serious. I'm from Detroit. I don't know what a hurricane is, you know. I'm oblivious to this. I don't know the magnitude. I don't know what it can be. And then I got comfortable my freshman year because for those of you who are aware and or not aware, it's a thing called hurricane season. So people will say, oh, they dumb. Why they ain't leave? if every year you think you're going to pack up your home every single year and the majority of the time it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So freshman year, we had a hurricane warning. My parents flew me home. Nothing happened. It barely rained. Mm-hmm. So this time they like, man, we ain't doing that again. Mm-hmm. But it happened to be Katrina. You see what I'm saying? How it could be one way or the other?
Yeah.
So because they were taking this one seriously, they started encouraging people to leave if you can. And my mother, networking again, my mother has a very close friend that she used to work with and grew up with. Shout out to Aunt Pat because she saved my life. Pat Beeman, shout out to the whole Beeman family. Because I don't even want to think about what
could have happened
if I didn't go with her niece to where she took me, right outside Jackson, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And so we was on the back end of Katrina. So when I say the back end, I experienced a heavy rain, and the equivalent of a severe thunderstorm here is what I experienced. You know, sometimes you lose power.
Yeah.
So we was in that, and Aunt Pat has acres in Mississippi, so it's one of them properties where stereotypical country. You get what I'm saying? Like you come out on the dirt road, tree as far, just say you come out of her home, out the front door, trees as far as you can see, left and right. And behind you, all land. 5,000 square foot home sitting on acres that they own, family owned property. Another family that she knows stayed with us. And she has a type of home that everybody had their own room.
Can accommodate it.
Everybody had their own room.
Yeah, so she was accommodating that. And while this is happening, you're still looking at the news.
Nah. So right before Katrina started, so we got there on Saturday morning. Katrina made landfall on Monday. Mm-hmm. Me and the people in the home, we watching on CNN briefly. You know, Katrina just made landfall. The roof of the Superdome is damaged. About 10 minutes later, we lose electricity.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, oh, shit. This is the scariest I've ever been in my life, and also the quickest turnaround. This is why I'm fearless now, because I've learned through Katrina's experience that when you learn to accept mortality, that's when you really start to live. Because you can't change. I can't fight no hurricane.
Yeah.
You can't. So I felt the most helpless, and I gained my strength all in the same vein. Because it's like, this power go out. I'm like, this might be it. Then it starts raining, like a lot.
Raining hard, yeah.
But like I said, so at this point, we don't know what y'all seeing.
Yeah.
So a peace and calm came over me. It just rained, like I said, severe thunderstorm for about a day. This is Mississippi heat in the summer.
So yeah, uncomfortable as all get up.
So yeah, and then we got the candles. We playing games and keeping each other's spirits up. So then once the rain stops, just like that, the next day, it's hot and humid and sunny. I felt this peace over me that I never felt up to that point in my life. So I'm in my room, and this is when my spiritual journey began, and it's documented on paper. Because like I said, for a minute, subconsciously, I thought it was over. I didn't know if I was going to make it back here. I wrote on a piece of paper, I, Christopher Larry Massey, fully commit to fulfilling God's will in its entirety, period. Date and time, August 29th, 3:29 p.m., signed it. That was my contract with God. And that's when I started walking in my purpose on purpose, which led a spiritual journey, which led to entrepreneurship. I realized I had a purpose, in that moment. It was this calmness. And the reason that's a significant moment in my life, and that is the best and most important decision I will have made in this lifetime in its entirety, because that's what set me on the course to where I'm going and where I've been since I was 19. And I grew up in the church, not very religious, but it's just something
you're
you
in church because your family's in church.
Sundays, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in the church?
No, not really. But I understand the culture of it, and most people definitely, if you're younger, you're going to be in church.
You doing what they doing because you ain't got no say in it.
Yes.
Exactly. So, yeah, you know what it's like. And so every Sunday, or a lot of Sundays growing up, I was in church. So I know God is a thing. I ain't no scholar or nothing, but so this is why my decision was easy. And it wasn't of a specific religion. I just felt that peace because I like to keep certain things simple. It's like, I don't know what this, I didn't ask a lot of questions. God say, I got something for you. Do you trust me or not? I'm like, it's a no-brainer for me because I'm like, I don't know a lot about God, but I know God don't send people on dummy missions. And God is the source of divinity and all things good. So whatever it is, it's going to work out in my favor. So I didn't hesitate about making that lifelong commitment.
So in that commitment, from there, just back to the story of it, when does power come back? What's the navigating? How do things move?
While I was down there, power didn't come back. So that day, it was more sunny and stuff. So like I said, phones was getting low. So we thought we was gonna drive into Jackson because we was on the outskirts of Jackson, Mississippi. So we driving into the city to look for a store to go buy a phone charger because we felt it was safe to go. You know, obviously Jackson is one of the ones that got hit.
Yeah.
So we driving into the city and we like, oh, this must have got real because like I said, we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
We didn't see what y'all was seeing on TV.
Yeah.
We seeing down power lines, tree
Everything.
branches.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's hot and humid and wet. Some places, I guess, had a little, you know, like.
Yeah, it's like anything on the grid. Some things a little bit here and there, but nothing
it might have been
was.
I'm saying it might have been like generated, like somebody's generator, because some places had electricity or something. We found this one spot. We pulled over. I remember it was a shopping center, and where I got my phone charger from, next door to it was a laundromat. And when we seen people gather, they had the TV on. You know, the old school TVs that hang off the thing. We looked up, and that's the first time I seen the water to the treetops of Katrina. I mean, in New Orleans. And I said, damn.
Yeah. So this reconfirms the contract you just signed as well.
I mean, when you do something like that, it's not all glamorous and immediately, you know what I'm saying? It's like things got to kick in motion.
Yeah.
So I ain't really think, like, at this point, I guess I go into like subconscious survival mode. Like, I know what, I was speechless because the city that I once loved.
Yeah.
I was just there 2 days ago. It was so vibrant, and we doing all of this, and I got my whole freshman year behind me. You know, I went to my first Mardi Gras, and just immediately, just like that, because obviously that's a game changer in American history, the history of the earth in general, and that's a complete instant reset.
So
things will never be the same again. But you ain't thinking like that immediately, you know?
Not at all. And now you see that on the TV. I'm just wondering, like, navigating past that, like, do you come back to Detroit? Do you what ends up happening? When do you what picks up with Dillard? You know, where does everything lie there?
Basically, I'm in 5 cities in 2 weeks. And in between that time, I want to say September 1st or September 3rd, my grandfather passed. So he passed when I was trying to get back home.
Are the roads, I'm guessing the roads are like beyond packed.
When we was leaving, because, you know, and whoever remember, or you could look it up, they had made the highways the same direction getting out of there.
Yeah.
The traffic jam was the heaviest when we was going to Jackson. That was a Saturday morning we left because it hit on a Monday.
Yeah.
That was the longest, and then after that, people was at where they was
Getting
at.
out was easier.
You mean after Katrina?
I'm saying after Katrina, getting out was easier.
Yeah, so I had to wait for the Jackson airport to open. So that was like a couple of days. Then when I finally got out of there, I came straight home, and then I'm dealing with funeral services and stuff, you know. And at that time, because we didn't know what it was going to be, because that was a severe, to say the least, storm, catastrophic experience. So different universities opened their doors up to displaced Katrina students. So I went to Howard on the Katrina grant.
Interesting.
I chose Howard because, like you said, how Bates students do, we go where the people we know at. So a lot of people I know went to Howard. So I'm like,
from Dillard went to Howard.
Well, actually, a lot of people from Dillard went to Howard.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But a lot of people from
a lot of people from high school were already at Howard. Okay.
So they was like, yeah, come over here.
Okay.
So
what was Howard like?
It was interesting.
Because this is also interesting too. You go from Detroit, one black city, to New Orleans, like I think that's like a half and half black city to another black city.
And 2 HBCUs.
Yeah, and 2 HBCUs. You like the you like a walking. Yeah, I know you like a walking United Negro College Fund commercial or something at that point. Man. So and then also DC its own culture within itself. In a lens, another one of those cities that I think New Orleans is a lot more fun personally, but it's still a city that definitely connect to just period.
Culture, yeah, DC, man. I love DC. I love the city of DC. I'm going to be transparent with you. I used to have an issue with Howard, but in hindsight, I'm addressing this now. You're the first person I'm telling this to. In hindsight, like I said, I changed my subconscious, my demeanor changed as a result of Katrina, and I didn't realize these changes. Like, that ain't nothing normal. That's why I be trying to get people to understand, if Katrina can affect the Eastsider from Detroit, how do you think it feel for the people who born and raised there?
Yeah.
And lived there and was living until they couldn't.
Yeah.
I've experienced certain things. I've been in therapy as of December 8th, 2021. And I say that because now I'm headed into year 3 of professional, professional mental counseling and assistance. So, and we'll talk about the window from Katrina alone.
Yeah.
So for approximately 15 years, I'm just out here doing what I know to do, or I'm just out here. But that's why I pay attention to people a certain way, because you never know what their life is about.
True.
And so I say all that to say I went into school mode at Howard.
Your presence of mind was not there.
I'm not an average 19-year-old at this point.
And then also I think the juxtapose of like, okay, Howard's so different than Dillard. Then in the back of, I think, anybody's mind, just naturally, you're going to be thinking, okay, it may be 6 months, maybe a year, it may end up back there. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to, like, you're almost in purgatory here for a better, like, you.
Nah. See, I knew I wouldn't come.
You knew that was a door that was closed in your mind.
I made up my mind to leave school, and I'm like, you here on a Katrina grant, so I got a whole year for free. So if it wasn't for free, I would have came back home immediately.
Yep.
This is when that walking in purpose comes into, because like, okay, what's your next move though? You got the whole school year to figure this out.
Okay.
Special thanks and shout out to the Craighead family and Tiffany Johnson, because if it wasn't for Mike and Marissa Craighead, Mike I went to high school, Basin Renaissance with, and obviously because we grew up together, I know his sister who graduated from Howard. And as she graduated, the house that she lived in, her roommate stayed for law school, Tiffany. So when I got to Howard, they was accepting people, but they ain't tell you about you got to take care of your room and board.
Yeah, so you had a place.
Fortunately.
Yeah, I was going to say shout out to them because you had a place.
What happened? So I'm going to say, shout out to, because what happened was, so I get there, I didn't know about this because I went immediately after. So the day after my grandfather's funeral, I'm on the plane to D.C.
Yep.
So I'm still processing all that. I'm processing Katrina, my grandfather. That was the first time I had a chance to really just calm down for a minute. And when I get there to find out, I ain't got nowhere to...
You got to focus on something else now.
I ain't got nowhere to stay.
Yep.
So Mike went out on a limb. I stayed on his floor for a week. I wasn't supposed to in the dorm because you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
He snuck me in there.
Yeah, it is what it is. So shout out Mike.
Yeah.
So
statutes of limitations up on that.
Yeah.
So we good.
So then you find the place.
So I'm talking because I'm like, I can't stay here forever. You know, on his floor.
Obviously, yeah.
So I gotta figure something out. Then I talk with his sister, and she talked with Tiffany.
And you get that opportunity, so that's
Tiffany
good.
Says
I'm more so getting to that point of like during this year, where does it click of what you want to do?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew school wasn't it.
Okay, all right.
Entrepreneurship is the route for me. Is the thing that comes into mind. What type of entrepreneur? I don't know, but this is when I started studying life. I read a lot of business and spiritual books. This is when I started to read.
Who are you reading?
Consistently. At that time, excuse me. At that time, I read 2 books that introduced me to financial literacy and accumulating generational wealth. Rich Dad's Guide to Investing by Robert Kiyosaki, most known for Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. And this is a dope full circle moment. Millionaire by Farrah Gray. I want to say he's doctor, but Farrah Gray at the least. Are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
So this is dope.
Familiar with both.
So Farrah Gray. And you know, he from where we from. Similar. South side of Chicago. He made his first million at 14 by selling his grandmother. This is for those who are not familiar with his story, because a lot of us, if you hear somebody made their first million at 14 from South side of Chicago, you thinking something else. He sold his grandmother's recipe to a grocery conglomerate. He had the entrepreneurial mindset since he was about 6. His book, I want to say it's his first one, called Millionaire. That came out when he was about 21. I'm 19. So my logic is like, you might want to listen to this guy. He's 7 years your senior, but he's been rich for 7 years. I know. He's, let me see. I'm 19. He's about 21, 22. So he's 3 years my senior, but he's been rich for 7 years. So he might know what he's talking about.
Okay.
That is when I decided I made the decision. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I don't know what kind or how, but I'm about to figure out. So fast forward, September last year, I went to the Alibaba conference in Vegas, the inaugural conference where Damon John spoke.
Mm-hmm.
I get off the plane to go get my bag. Farrah Gray is getting his luggage.
There you go. So, but I still want to get back to the story because we ain't got so much time.
He changed my life.
I'm saying?
He changed my life and taught me that. So I was able to, shout out to him, to connect with the person who introduced me to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So I started studying generational wealth and financial literacy, and the spiritual side taught me, and I tied those two into business principles and spiritual principles are not that different.
Mm-hmm.
They're characteristics. So if money wasn't a factor, what would you be doing? I love music. My mother is the music side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I get my high music IQ from. So, okay, but you're not a musician. You're not an artist, you're not this. But what are you? So I started learning the music industry. I'm going to start a career in the music industry. That's my first.
That's step one. You know, it'll be there. What will you do?
I experimented. I've been assistants. I managed the group.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to produce.
Mm-hmm.
Enters podcasting because it took about 2 years.
Because now you're still in the studio.
I left Howard. Fast forward, I left Howard after that sophomore year was over because I ain't really do the school stuff while I was there.
Yeah.
So once that was over, I came back home April 2006. Networking again. My father's like, oh, Chris want to work in the music industry. One of his close friend's sons was doing security for Eminem at the time and working with all these producers.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, so I'm in the industry. Tell Chris I'm going to try to find him. He could shadow whoever.
Yeah.
So this is my introduction into the music industry.
So you passed.
2006.
Yeah, and I don't want to rush so much, but I do want to just get, because I know time's running, and I do want to get to the podcasting part because for people that don't know, obviously, technically, this is a lot of this same equipment runs concurrent. Now, in a studio, this is probably going to be a condenser microphone, which not to get too nerdy about it because went to recording school and stuff. This is a dynamic microphone in podcasting because it's more so for broadcast. Broadcasts are dynamic microphones, and then you get like different patterns like cardioids and stuff like that. But it still puts you in a studio where you're learning the mixing board, you're learning the microphone, you're seeing that world. When does it hit you like, yo, maybe I can interview some people?
I wasn't like that at all. Like, I just go with the flow, you know what I'm saying? So that's my flexibility in life, and being able to go with the flow is what led me to podcasting because I keep an open mind. I start with a certain agenda, but I'm open-minded enough to know how to adapt. So as I went through those channels through the music industry, networking, If I would have graduated from college, I would have graduated in '08. So my peers are graduating in '08, and I go to what they call it when people graduate. They throw like a party, like a house warming or something. I mean, not whatever that's called, post graduation party. Shout out to Courtney, who graduated, because if she didn't invite me to whatever celebration that was, I wouldn't meet Stacey Jones, who was DJing, who introduced me to my career. Stacey is another innovative individual who she has an entrepreneurial spirit. At the time, at 22, she owned soundsofsoulradio.com, her own radio station, and she was, I networked, and then Facebook was a thing at the time, so we followed each other on Facebook. She sent me a group invite to Sounds of Soul Radio, and that's my personality. I support you. You ain't got to beg me to do it. So I ain't think nothing of it. Fast forward, I get an invitation seeking airtime for sale. So I inquired about it because, like I said, I'm figuring stuff out. I don't know what my next move is. So I called her about it, and it made sense. And I said, so how would this work? She said, oh, I'm going to give you your own show. You rent this amount of airtime. It was very reasonable. Do whatever you want to do. Don't worry about the technical side. She's a certified sound engineer.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing. She runs the station already. She said, we're going to start like this. I'm going to introduce you to this, but I'm going to show you in the way that you can learn as you go, and eventually you'll be self-sufficient. So I went to thinking immediately, okay, you have a platform. You can do what you want to do. Honestly, I'm not a fan of certain mainstream media, so I said, what would I want to hear? What would I want to do? You could do what you want to do. I vowed to not play any songs that was playing on the radio because I know a lot of artists, and I want to be a platform
for them.
Yeah, because if I play music, whether I like your music or not, I'm not the one that's breaking records on that level. You already established to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And I like to do things from the inside out. So I'm like, that's how I accumulate guests. Who do I know first as opposed to just going over there first? Let's work this first. Let's get our position solidified first, and then let's branch out. I mean, I'm open if it makes sense, but I'm working it from the inside out. So what do I want to hear? So I asked my peers, and this is when networking comes full circle. And I bring it all home. I grew up East, went to school West, K through 12. Go down South for 1 year. Shoot over to the East Coast for 1 year. I got the Michigan network, I got the East Coast network, I got the Southern connection. And everybody in between because of college. I come back home. Now I have something to do with this network. I have a platform. So when I say the Chris Massey Show on soundsofsoulradio.com comes on Monday night at 10 o'clock, my peers who's still in college
connect to it.
Everybody, just like that.
Yeah. So
the very first show that I did, because I start with where I'm at, I like to keep it simple. Because I don't know nothing. I didn't study the formal way of formatting and broadcasting formats and all of that. Oh, you need a topic, Chris. You need guests. I cater to
who your audience is. So what do you do?
The very first show, I called my best friend John.
Okay.
He went to FAM and graduated from FAM. His father is an alpha, but he didn't cross. I called one of our other close friends, Brittany. I forgot what college she went to. Oh, she went to Spelman. Okay,
so 2 HBCUs, so FAMU and Spelman.
And she's an AKA.
Okay.
I'm in the neutral, so you see where I'm going. I started this first one off. First episode is about Greek life.
There you go. So John, definitely people want to listen.
John, why didn't you follow in your father's footsteps? Brittany, why did you choose AKA? Chris is not the college graduate. So all these different demographics, and we talked about Greek life, and I
played some songs there.
Yep, and then I asked my peers on Facebook
what they think,
or text me, what y'all want to hear. Because I just about to come up with a playlist, send that over to Stacey, just like that. So I'm playing all these dope records.
And having the conversation in between. And did you, so that's the start.
December 1st, 2008 was the first one.
And as we kind of get closer to the close for now, and I got to bring you back because I can definitely tell you got more.
I got stories for days.
Yeah, I know. So, where you at now? Because that in that iteration, this is like pre-podcast. Internet radio in itself was something. And this is pre-Spotify and a lot of other things. So like the way people do get music and find new music, songs really aren't on YouTube at the time. Like this is a different era. Where you at now with your show?
Right now, we have the visual for 14 out of the 15 years. It was the Chris Massey Show. Yep. That's how I learned how to brand myself. Mm-hmm. I used to be known for wearing the Chris Massey Show T-shirts, all of that.
More so that brand that you're wearing right now, the legendary brand. And shout out to Howie Bell. You know my man Howie Bizzell.
Yes, sir, comedian. My big bro. Yeah.
That's my guy. He's going to be one of the judges at the Collard Green Cook-Off, too.
Yes, sir.
So, all right.
Shout out to Howie Bell. He's one of the ones who's been a significant component and supporter of my career.
Yep.
And
but now you had the visual. What's happening with the show? Where do you see the arc of it? Because not as much in music, but more so just in interviews. Who do you look to interview?
Right now, like I said, the first 14 out of 15 years, it was the Chris Massey Show. And we, in the rebranding stage right now, I changed it to Hidden Gems, people you need to know and why. Mm-hmm. Because for so many years, I got the question, so what is your show about? And I narrowed it down at some point to I feature innovators and great personalities. But then instead of saying that over and over, I just put it in the title, Hidden Gems, people you need to know and why.
Yeah.
And I'm really into the storytelling aspect because the irony is that it was called and is known as the Chris Massey Show, but it's not about Chris Massey.
No.
It's about the guest because the way that I've built my brands, my goal is always to create mutually beneficial relationships. For example, like Legendary. I'm not saying I'm legendary and you ain't. I'm saying that what you're doing is legendary and I want to celebrate and acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. Chris Massey Show. This is an honor and a privilege that you have invited me onto your platform because I really get to express myself. I've had people say, I love that show that you did or that interview with so-and-so, but I want to know more about you. But I'm like, in due time.
And I appreciate it too. And if you guys can go in the archives and dig it up, that was Cardi's Rapper days. And that was one of my favorite interviews that we had when I was.
I gotta unlock my SoundCloud because
that was
right now we
on
the YouTube. Right now we on YouTube, but I got hundreds of shows when I unlock my SoundCloud. I'm gonna do that for you.
If a person finds that, boy, you're knee deep in it.
Or
knee deep in it. I don't even know. I was ranting
before I even unlock it. I could look for the file and send it.
Hilarious.
Hilarious. Yeah, because you was actually at the
we were over at the elevator building. That was the first time I came in the elevator building. I've done other business in there too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, I do remember that episode. And I was like, because Rip was like, yo, my man got a show. I know you working on your album. You can connect with him. And then you was like, yeah, you can come on. Like, I want to say, like, I'll talk to you Monday. And I was like, on the show on Thursday. And it was like, okay, that's real dope.
That was a special time in my career because that's what helped get me here. Mm-hmm. That was the second move because when I started off in 2008 with Stacy, mm-hmm. I was working out of her attic in Highland Park. Mm-hmm. Then we hadn't talked for years. I had transitioned because she went in one direction.
Yeah, things happen.
But I was like, how? And I asked her because she's always supportive and innovative. I was like, how do I keep my show going? So I was actually doing the visual side. It just didn't take off because of lack of resources and opportunity. I did that briefly in 2010. Which is not the standard.
Yeah, this stuff takes capacity and then also the equipment as things. As a person that does a lot of this, if anybody hears me rant, oftentimes I'll say the design of a lot of this is more so for the TikToker, and I'm not a TikToker. And it's like things just change and shift where the trends of the equipment is and finding access to some of the things like I'm doing right now. Like it's the capacity of what existed then just wasn't like it is now.
Exactly. And so fast forward to the elevator building because I was with Stacy from her attic to then I was working with a videographer, going independent with the visual. That was brief. To circle back to Stacy, and now she's at the elevator building. Mm-hmm. And when we reconnected, that was August 2011.
Cool.
And once again, every time take a hiatus, I come back with something different.
That's cool.
And more efficient, no matter how long it's been.
Whatever them systems be.
And so we always keep getting better and better. So I didn't know she was at the elevator building. I just was circling back to her, say what's up.
That's cool.
I did my first live show. It was all audio. Imagine if we had the cameras back then, though, in that specific venue.
Lord knows.
Because that was a beautiful, aesthetically pleasing.
How'd it look? It'd have been crazy.
And so
I'm talking about me, but no, the show was dope. The show was dope.
So I broadcasted live 5 days a week, sometimes 6 for 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years over there.
That was heavy. You was putting in that work, bro.
That's what got me to where I'm at now, because I'm like, I need content.
You put it in.
And I did that on purpose to get me out of my comfort zone, because my show is therapeutic for me, because when that light go on, you have to perform.
And with that, I definitely, where do people listen? How do people connect?
You can follow me on Instagram at Chris Massey Show, at The Hidden Gems Show, and at Legendary, LGNDRE. And the YouTube channel is Hidden Gems, People You Need to Know and Why. Yep. And yeah, that's the best ways to contact me.
All right. Now, classic Detroit is different questions. Your very first car, year, make, and model, and year you got it.
A green 1992 Honda Accord. I was 16, April 2002.
Okay. Where's the first place you went when you got it?
I went to my homie's house, and the first CD I put in was Reasonable Doubt.
Ah, there we go. Can't knock the hustle. I'm with it. I'm with it. So you went riding to pick up the homie. Now we hitting the streets.
And what's crazy about that, he mad at me now because this is the time we used to collect CDs. I have a dope music collection. And he had the original Reasonable Doubt, the one that has Freeze Records on it.
Yeah, Freeze Records with the umlaut, when Jay-Z had the umlaut, meaning like I took German, so the 2 dots over the dash.
And I lost it.
Yeah, a lot of people.
He was like, man, that's my original.
Yeah, because for a while, people don't know this.
Yeah,
Reasonable Doubt was, because of the record industry stuff, you could not buy that Reasonable Doubt album for maybe about 4 or 5 years. It was a re-release upon everything getting, Jay-Z building in his stature to buy everything back. Well, Jay-Z, Biggs, and Dame Dash. Second question. It's the end of the fireworks. You get to play 2 songs. Woodward and Jefferson, you the DJ. What songs you playing?
Because of what I've been listening to recently, something chill. It's a certain version of Maxwell's Ascension, the Don't Ever Wonder version.
Okay.
The upbeat.
Okay.
And recently I've been listening a lot to Terrace Martin and Alexis Isley.
I'm with it. That's a dope project. But what song?
Honey.
Okay. That's a real cool song.
Right.
That's LA vibes. If it ever was
right.
LA vibes, you know what I'm saying? Like you go to like any day party in LA,
it's a banger. Yeah.
It's going.
That's the one.
You know what I'm saying? It's going as they try to give you like some type of avocado something.
It's just an LA vibe, right? It's just the weather, sunshine, and all that great stuff.
Last question. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Chris Massey.
Why?
Because I'm on that next level. I like to tell people, recently, it's come full circle. My father retired from Ford. He put in 35 years for Henry Ford. I am the next Henry Ford type. So that's going to be, when it's all said and done, the Massey legacy.
I'm with it. Thank you so much, my brother. And
thank you.
Definitely got to get you back. So if people wonder, like, who been putting the building blocks and Legos into this storytelling from this lens in the D, that man right there. Thank you so much.
It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.